Hi, I'm Jason. Welcome back to my workshop. It's the day after Christmas, and I must have made Santa's nice list this year because he brought me a new set of bench chisels. I had a set of 4 that served me well for a few years, and I made this storage rack for them that hangs on my cleat wall system. But the new set is bigger and nicer and worthy of a new storage rack. So I'm going to build that today, and I'll show you how. So here's the old storage rack I built. It works okay. I mean, I made it out of scraps, didn't put a lot of thought into it. It's just 3/4 inch birch ply. I've got a beveled cleat on the top and a spacer on the bottom so that I can hang it on the cleats on my wall. I won't show you how to do that in this video because I did it in the video before this one, which you can also watch here on my YouTube channel. So the way I made this is I just took some 1/2 inch scraps of Baltic birch plywood, left spaces for each of the chisels, and then I ran a longer piece of 3/4 ply and I just glued and tacked it over that. It holds the chisels, but the problem is they kind of get wedged in there. They don't sit proud of the plywood by very much, and they sort of jam themselves in there. The sharp edge kind of scratches up the bottom of the storage rack. So I think we can do a little better. What I think I'll do this time for my new chisels is I'll run a long piece like this, only I'll use 1/2 inch plywood this time. And I'll run that all the way across, then I'll put the spacers on top of that, and then I'll run another long piece over the top of that. That way the chisels, instead of being jammed in there like that, will sit a little farther away from the plywood, so there'll be a little bit of airspace, and it'll be easier for me to get my fingers behind there, pull it out, and get it back in without damaging my fingers or the chisels. So let's get started. So I'm terrible at math, and I'm in no way qualified to teach anybody math. But there's a concept here you need to understand if you want your chisels to be evenly spaced on this piece of plywood, which we do. I know that the total width of this piece of plywood is 19 5/8. I know that I need 1 1/8 inches for each chisel. And I have 6 chisels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 1/8 inches times 6 is 6 3/4. You take that total width, which is 19 5/8, you subtract the 6 3/4, which is the space for all the chisels, that gives you 12 7/8. 12 7/8 is the total space that you're left with. The space that I need for all of the spacer blocks that go in between each of the chisels. I know I need 7 spacer blocks because I have 6 chisels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I want them to all be equal in size, or as close as I can get. What I do next is I take the 12 7/8, which was the total space I was left with, I divide that by 7. That gives me 1 3/16. That means that each spacer block needs to be 1 3/16. And I put it like that, and I make a mark on the board. Then I made another spacer block that's 1 1/8, which is the width I need to hold each chisel. So then I just butt it up just like that, and then we play leapfrog, right? Move a spacer, make a mark. Move a spacer again, make a mark. Okay? You do that all the way down the end of the plywood, and you end up with 6 perfectly spaced chisels. So the first thing we need to do is cut 7 of these spacer blocks. Now I'm cutting the 7 spacer blocks at 1 13/16 wide by 4 inches long. Now I'll cut the front and back strips at 4 inches wide. All right, so we're finished cutting our spacers and our plywood strips, and it's time to build a sub-assembly that will attach to this piece of plywood here in just a little bit. So the first thing we do is take the first spacer, attach it to the left side of this 4-inch strip of plywood. And then that 1 1/8 gauge block that I showed you earlier, we'll tuck it up against the first spacer, just like that. Then we'll glue and tack another spacer. And we'll just keep doing the same thing until we get all the way down. And then we'll glue and tack this piece of plywood on top of all of that. Brush that out. All right, and then we'll flush it up here. So you want to make sure it's flush top and bottom and even on the side. And we'll use a couple of 3/4 inch nails. All right, so some glue on the spacers. And then when that's done, we'll attach the top. And some nails. All right, so we've got the subassembly all tacked together, and I've taken my widest chisel and my narrowest chisel. Now, if I shake this back and forth, the wide one sits in there okay, but the skinny one just kind of flops around in there. And I don't like that too much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a Forstner bit for each chisel that is slightly wider than the ferrule at the base of the handle right here. And I'm gonna make a counter bore in each of the holes. And then when I do that, it should sit in there nice and flush. Perfect. Well, there's not much left to do. I just need to mount this rack to the piece of plywood. I'll do that with some glue, and then I'll tack it with some brads from behind and add a few screws. I think I'll put a couple of clamps on that to hold it while I flip it over. And now I'll just cut a beveled cleat and spacer and mount them on the back. And now we'll just glue and tack the spacer in place. All right, now it's time to hang the rack on the wall and see if Santa's present fits. All right, I'm loving this. This is gonna make a huge difference. And much better than my old way of letting these roll around inside of a drawer and clank into each other. I can't tell you how many times I've ruined a sharp edge because of that. Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's it from here in the workshop. I hope you like this project. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the like button, and also ring the bell so you'll know when I have new videos posted. See you soon.